Have you been trying to find the right time to level up your professional dog trainer skills, knowledge, and certification? No matter where you are on your journey, the Victoria Stilwell Academy's dog trainer course is here to help you chase your dreams as a professional dog trainer. Just visit vsdta.com to get in touch, enroll in a free course, or apply now. That's vsdta.com. Again, go to vsdta.com to learn more now. Have you ever wondered how what your dog eats affects their behavior? Well, my next guest knows all about that. Her name is Kari Bastyr. She is a VSPDT. She is, I met her 15 years ago. I was speaking at the IAAB conference. It just seems like such a long time ago now, but I met her there. And she is a certified pet nutrition specialist. She's a certified dog behavior consultant with the IAABC and with VSPDT. I mean, she's got so many credentials. I can't go down through it all, but what I'm really excited to talk to you about, Kari, is the relationship between the gut, the brain, and behavior in our dogs, because that is something that something that you've researched, something that you have learned a lot about, and that you can help us understand a little bit more about. This is the first time, really, I think, on this podcast that we focused on nutrition. And we should have done it before. We should have done it before, but now we have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Well, I went to school for this. I got my master's degree in animal behavior in 95. So I've been doing this a really long time. I started my business in Denver. I've since moved to Minneapolis. And I've gone down the nutrition path with my health and with my dog's health. And it just I went down this rabbit hole probably 10 years ago, and I haven't stopped.
Now, the rabbit hole has taken you on this journey.
Yes.
And I think it's something that more and more people are talking about now. They're talking about it in humans. But more and more people are talking about this relationship between the gut, the brain, and behavior in dogs too. So you refer to, or I know that in your materials, you refer to the gut-brain axis.
Yes.
Or axis, I should say.
Yes.
Which is this sort of bidirectional communication system between the gastrointestinal tract and the central nervous system.
Yes.
Have I got that right?
Yes, good. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that, please, because it sounds very complicated.
The gut-brain axis, like you said, is how the gut and the brain communicate with each other bidirectionally. It's through the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a collection of cells and neurotransmitters that are very important for mood and behavior. And it's just, the gut sends the brain messages, and the brain sends the digestive tract or the gut or the microbiome messages too. And that is how the neurotransmitters and, like I said, the other cells and bacteria get back and forth.
When we think about the brain, we always see it as this thing that seems to be separate from everything else.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. And we talk about, when we talk about mental health, I mean, now people are talking about mental health in terms of the whole body, but It's always seen like the brain is the issue, right, with mental health and that. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about the whole everything and neurotransmitters, you always think of like when people are talking about serotonin and dopamine, it's always like it's in the brain, but actually that's not the case.
It's not. We think that about 80 to 90% of neurotransmitters are produced in the gut, in the digestive tract. About 10 to 20 produced in the brain. Isn't that, it's just, it blows my mind. Blows my
It
mind.
absolutely does. So that's the reason why, if you are fearful, if you are stressed out, that's
Mhm.
the reason why so many people and dogs have gastrointestinal issues, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. I mean, the digestive function is part of the gut brain axis. And, when you get butterflies in your tummy, that's kind of your digestive tract saying, "Hey, something's going on in here, something's off." And that's where anxiety starts. In the digestive tract, obviously mood disorders. But there's more things that are affected by gut health too: inflammation in the body, cognitive function, um, allergies. The whole immune system pretty much is in the digestive tract. So the microbiome or the digestive tract is from the pretty much the mouth through the colon. So everything in there affects all the systems of the body.
You became interested in this because of your own journey,
Yes,
your discovery because of celiac disease.
correct. Yes, I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2013. I did not have any symptoms other than anxiety and migraines. It wasn't even on my radar, but I had to have surgery, and the blood work showed that I was very low in iron and ferritin. So I was extremely anemic. So that then started this whole process of trying to find out why. Eventually I had a biopsy, endoscopy, and was diagnosed with celiac disease. But within the medical community, medicine doesn't really focus on or learn about autoimmune disorders, because for a lot of autoimmune disorders there isn't a medication, or there isn't like an actual. And with celiac disease, of course, going gluten free is very important, which I did, but I was still sick. And what I learned is that I had what's called dysbiosis that turned into leaky gut syndrome. And so I had to learn. I had to do my own research, and I did work with a functional medicine doctor back then. But I had to learn how to heal myself by myself, because there isn't a whole lot. The medical community doesn't know a whole lot. So I did, and I learned how to improve my digestion, improve my immune system. I had tremendous anxiety, and I thought it was just from running my own business and running myself ragged and trying to do all this stuff. And in fact, it was not. It was because of my leaky gut syndrome, or I had a kind of a faulty gut brain axis.
What
And so
is
that's a
leaky
whole other
gut?
thing. Yes.
What is that?
It is okay, so the microbiome is the digestive tract, and that's where all the gut bacteria live. And there's good gut bacteria and bad gut bacteria. Most people have a good balance of bacteria. People like me, or people with leaky gut syndrome, have an imbalance. So we have more bad gut bacteria. And when it gets really bad, like it did in my case, it affects the small intestine. I don't want to get too scientific, but basically the small intestine has these little finger-like nodules that are called villi. Everybody has them. It's where all the nutrients are absorbed. It's how the food gets through the small intestine. And when you have a dysbiosis or an imbalance, also combined with increased stressors and environmental toxins, autoimmune disease, other inflammation in your body, it causes leaky gut syndrome. And that's where the toxins leak out into your bloodstream, because those villi just kind of lay down. They don't really die off. They're still there, but they kind of shrink and they lay down, and the nutrients don't pass through
Mm.
through the small intestine. They leak out into the body. So it causes a lot more issues.
Wow.
Yes, it's fast.
And wow. Okay. And we're talking about this in human beings.
Mhm.
What about in dogs?
Great question. Long story short, my dog was diagnosed with a immune mediated disease after an unfortunate series of events, and she was on medication and developed this immune mediated disease. And so her veterinarians told me, you have to work on improving her immune system because she doesn't have any neutrophils in her bloodstream anymore. And a light bulb went off because I thought, oh, I know how to improve an immune system in a human. It can't be too different than a dog. So that was the rabbit hole I continued to go down. And while we couldn't reverse her immune mediated disease, what I did do was I improved her immune system enough. And I forgot to say, she also had leaky gut syndrome. So, she had inflammation throughout her body, chronic inflammation. She had autoimmune disease, cognitive dysfunction. She developed anxiety, all the same symptoms that people get when they get leaky gut syndrome. And this was all through my own research and, correlations. So I went to work on healing her immune system, and I got 2 years and 2 days more with her.
Wow.
And through all of it, I realized that a lot of dogs that I work with in my business potentially have dysbiosis and leaky gut syndrome. So that was another light bulb moment. And I started to figure out how to help these dogs in my program, and the rest is history, as they
And when
say.
was this? How long ago was this that you were making that connection and you started to actually work with
2017.
clients? Okay.
Yeah. And before that, I was always interested in um, different kinds of, nutritional aspects for dogs. There's obviously a lot of opinions on dog food, and I get that. I never really focused on it until I realized that nutrition plays a huge part with anxiety and hence behavior.
Right. So we are bombarded with, oh no, feed kibble because it's easiest. No, don't feed kibble. You have to feed raw. No, don't feed raw because then you're going to get salmonella. I mean, where does it end? And then we've got all these commercials on TV for all of these different like food. It's human food, and
Yeah.
I hope your dog's eating human food. That would be really weird if it was just eating dog food, right?
Yeah.
But because
Well,
dog
a
food
lot of
is
people do
from
that.
right,
It's from
so
human food. It's
yes,
just human food.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
so so. I mean, I have to say personally, I do kind of a mixture, but I do cook a lot for my dog. She is elderly, and I do prepare meals. Actually, I cook for her more than I do for me, but so I do use a mixture, so I know that she's getting a complete diet. I don't feed her kibble, but right. So
That's
what should
important. Yep.
people do? This is talk about like training being difficult to find a trainer that like, oh my gosh, there's so many
Yeah.
videos on the internet, you don't know who to choose. But food.
It's a very sticky subject. And, I try and tread lightly with my clients because you're just bombarded, and I don't want anyone to get overwhelmed. Also, just within the medical community and veterinary community, there's like a hard line with one side and don't do this, don't do this, which I understand. I got it with the medical community when I was dealing with my own issues. But dog food is human food. It's made with human food. And when you look at human food, what when I got diagnosed with celiac disease, and I'm not making a correlation with dogs with celiac disease, but one thing that I had to do was go gluten free because it's an autoimmune disease. But I was still sick. So I had to learn how to heal my body, heal my digestive tract. I had to get my iron up, even though I had to have infusions every week. And I used food to do it. And human food has so many nutrients, good food, like whole foods. And, fresh food, whole foods, that's how we get our nutrients through how our body digests it. The short chain fatty acids in the gut are really important for a lot of things.
So wait a
Amino
second. You're
acids.
saying short chain fatty acids. Are you talking about amino acids or are they long? What acids are you talking about?
The three that are, well, there's one butyrate that is really highly connected to neurotransmitter productions. There's propionine and acetate. Those are really the ones that affect neurotransmitter production.
And
And
where
there's
do you
other
get
ones,
those from?
food. So
Any
they're
type of food?
mostly foods that like greens, um, uh, foods that are higher in complex carbohydrates and foods that are able to be digested and break down into those short chain fatty acids. So non-essential amino acids, basically.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways that we can use food to increase those short chain fatty acids to increase neurotransmitter production.
Right.
But
So I'm
I'm
going
not,
to ask you though, what types of food are you talking about? Complex carbohydrates. So you leafy
greens.
greens. I mean,
Yep.
yes.
Leafy
What
greens are
else?
typically fruits and veggies, just, whole foods that are high in nutrients. The simple carbohydrates, the refined carbohydrates, those you can't, they're harder to break down. They increase inflammation in the gut. The refined carbohydrates aren't the whole food source. They're partial food sources. So you're not
Got it.
getting all the nutrients from the whole food source. So I guess, yeah, the going down this rabbit hole continually, it's whole foods basically, using whole foods, less processed. In the dog food community or nutrition community, we call them minimally processed foods. Just like with humans, what does your doctor tell you? Cut out processed foods. Try to eat more whole foods, eat more leafy greens, eat more veggies and fruits. So, what I tell my clients is that it's a very personal choice what you feed your dog. It's a conversation with your veterinarian. It's a conversation, obviously, with me or other people of your dog's care team. But it depends on your lifestyle. If you don't have time to cook for your dog, that's, don't feed a food like that, a homemade food. Budget, of course, there's definitely varying degrees of cost in these dog foods. And then just kind of how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. Like, how much do you want to, and I know most people do want to, but it can be work. It's a paradigm shift. That's what I always tell people. It's a huge paradigm shift. And I get it. Sometimes I start out small and just say, you know what, just give your dog a probiotic. Just start with that. And so I have a line of products and probiotics, a company that I use, that I'm not a part of, but I use them. I've used them ever since I was trying to heal Paisley back in 2017. And just start with a probiotic. Start trying to improve your dog's microbiome. Get some more good gut bugs in there. Try and get those good gut bugs to overtake the bad gut bugs.
All
Start with
right.
that.
I want to interrupt you there because obviously we got probiotics for humans. Should
Mhm.
people be taking those too?
Oh, sure. Why not? I mean, probiotics, it depends on the probiotic. Absolutely. And if you don't know exactly what your body's missing, what the good organisms, the good microorganisms that you're missing, taking expensive probiotics might be a moot point if you already have those. So testing, there's something called a GI map. I've done it a couple times. But there are tests for dogs too. You could do a biome map and figure out exactly what's in your dog's microbiome. And then trying to use a probiotic to replace those, if your dog is deficient in certain gut bugs, because those are
How do you
important.
do that? Is that through blood? Is that through poop? How do you test?
Well, through poop mostly.
Yeah.
Same for people, but it's easy. It's not that big of a deal. Well, at least I don't think so. But yeah, there's tests that, you just buy and send in, and kind of figure out where your dog's microbiome is at. You can do that for yourself, take some probiotics. There's two that are found to be more, I hate to say causative, but just more potentially influential for behavior and neurotransmitters. One is bifidobacterium and one is lactobacillus. So there's a, the probiotics that I recommend have those in them. Some of the veterinary probiotics have bifidobacterium. Some of them have lactobacillus, so that's great. But again, if you don't know what you're missing or what your dog's missing, then, testing can be helpful. So that's one thing. I mean, postbiotics, fermented food is a postbiotic. Fermented food is really good for the gut. It can be great for behavior. Prebiotics, those are what feed probiotics, and you can buy those too. A lot of the products that you can get have all three. I'm sorry, prebiotics, probiotics, and a lot of them have digestive enzymes, but that's just one thing that you can do. Adding in fresh food, like if you're feeding dry kibble, that's and that's your preference, that fits your budget, and that's what you've agreed on with your veterinarian. Great. Add in some fresh food, add in some toppers, a little bit of broccoli. A lot of people say my dog won't eat broccoli. Okay, well, then try, a little bit of banana or apple or green beans. I often tell people, you know what, make a puree. I have a
That's
recipe
what
for
I
a veggie
do.
puree. Yeah.
I do
And
puree, yeah.
yep. So I use bone broth, some sort of steamed vegetables. Hard
Hmm.
cruciferous vegetables should be steamed before you give them to your dog, because dogs don't have the enzymes in their saliva, one enzyme, amylase, to break down the vegetables. So steaming them, just gently steaming, don't, cook all the nutrients out. Use that, use some sort of fruit. I typically do apple without the seeds or the core. So bone broth, broccoli, apple, or any combination of veggie fruit. Sometimes I'll use ginger or cilantro as a leafy green. And then I also will put in like a sardine or a mussel, freeze-dried mussel, freeze-dried minnow, something like that, just to make it more palatable for the dog.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just put on on their food, not
Yeah.
your food.
Delicious.
Yes.
Delicious.
Oh yeah. Oh, I want to eat sardines with apples, but
Gosh,
anyway.
look, I'm from England, right? We always used to have sardines in the morning.
Yep.
Sardines on toast. Yep.
Yep.
Especially
My
during the
dad used to
weekend.
love. I could never eat a sardine, but
No,
yeah,
no,
dogs love
and
them.
definitely not now, not me now, but yes, yeah.
Cultural.
Okay, this is really amazing information.
I know
Could
it's a
you
lot
tell
too.
me, this is sort of an add-on to this as well, about MCTs, medium chain triglycerides. That's things like coconut oil, and that's
Mhm.
said to, certainly
Another.
for senior dogs, be beneficial, isn't it, for cognition, for their brains, for the fact that as you get older, as a dog gets older, there's less available glucose in the brain. So if you have a food that's rich in MCTs,
Yep.
that
It can
enables that to be
be
more available
beneficial.
glucose in the brain. Do I have that right?
Yes. They definitely can be beneficial. But another thing that happens when dogs age is the diversity of their microbiome decreases. So I'm happy you brought this up. It's most important, if you're not dealing with anxiety, if you're not dealing with a fearful or reactive dog. But if your dog is aging, you still want to make sure that you feed the diversity of their microbiome because it decreases over time. And then they get inflammation, cognitive deficits, allergies, skin irritations. The skin is another thing. Like the skin is its own microbiome, but the gut fuels the skin. So if you have skin allergies, you definitely want to look at gut health, and especially if your dog is very yeasty. I know I'm going off on all these tangents,
No,
but
but there's
this is
so
just
much.
how
This is
how
like,
it
do you know, we need
works.
to do a podcast that's like 5 hours long, Kari. I hope you realize this.
Great
Okay.
stuff.
But carry
Yes.
on.
Yeah. So if you have an aging dog, definitely look at their gut health. It's important, especially for inflammation, um, autoimmune diseases, all that. It's all related. And when I didn't know this, and I learned it, and I started taking in more and more information, I cannot tell you how much my mind was blown, obviously. I couldn't believe it because we're never taught this with dogs or people. We're just not.
Why though?
I don't know.
Why? It is central. Okay, look, maybe I have the answer, right? Maybe I have the answer. I think that, well, it's being taught a little bit more now, isn't it? But we grew up and we didn't even know any of this stuff really.
Mm-mm.
And
Mm-mm.
nobody really cared anyway. You
Yeah.
were feeling anxious or whatever. It's like, oh, just, go for a walk or something,
Yep.
or take a pill for this. And slowly we've becoming more aware of it. But our food sources, you just go to the
Mhm.
supermarket, you go to the grocery store, and you're walking down the aisles, and it is absolute crap. It is, most of the food is awful. So I did this the other day. I've been a little bit more aware. Well, for a while I've been more aware of what I'm eating, but as I get older, I certainly becoming more aware of what I'm eating. And I've got a sweet tooth, and so I'm going down the aisle as well with the salty snacks as well, because I like sweet and I like salt. But going down the chip aisle, and for England, this is the crisp aisle. Of
Yes.
like, what can I eat here? No, 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 no. Pretty much every single packet of chips / crisps are full of awful ingredients.
Mhm.
There's a couple of products that taste amazing, and they're grain free and they're gluten free. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to try one, and it's delicious, right? So I'm a convert, and I'm now going to.
Wonder which one it is. You'll have to tell me after
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I have
yeah,
one
yeah.
I want you to try.
Yes, it's really good. So, but I just realized, and I was going down the cereal aisle too.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
The cereal aisle is a disaster,
Oh.
especially when you're looking at all of the cereals that have got like marshmallows in them and different colors and loops and things, and all of that. I mean, we are all brought up on this.
Mm-hmm.
We are encouraged to eat disastrous food for us.
Yep.
We're lost right from the start unless you really know, or even like have the funds as well to
Right.
buy your greenery and buy this, and become cognizant of it right from the word go. We're really doing a disservice and an injustice to our bodies by eating this crap. But it's cheap, and
Mm-hmm.
with the the economy as difficult as it is,
Yeah.
there are some people, and there's some people are living in food deserts where they can't even access a freaking piece of
Correct.
fruit.
That's right.
No wonder we have so much mental health issues on top of everything else going on right now. But no wonder.
I know.
I
Food is
I
supposed
just
to
had a rant.
fuel our bodies, and same for dogs. And when we don't have food that can fuel our bodies, whole foods that fuel our bodies naturally, we're going to be missing certain, nutrients, and we're going to have inflammation, and we're going to have anxiety and allergies, and we're going to age faster and all that. So it's remarkable. And so, yeah, we are brought up that way. And I also think that the dog food industry has been just, it started with a processed biscuit, or I think it was called a biscuit, but it was like a processed food. And it was like a cracker, I think. And it was cheap to produce. And, back when it started to be popular, it was easier. Before that, dogs just ate table scraps and, lived on farms 100 years ago. And, so it's just kind of it has gotten to this point where the dog food industry, now that we know better, it's a paradigm shift, right? For everyone, for a lot of people. And it's just going to be hard, just like it is for with humans, to understand, well, I can't eat these processed chips with a ton of salt and canola oil or whatever every single day. You're not going to feel that great. And so dogs can definitely develop behavior issues, if they're not getting the right nutrition. And I'm careful with my words, obviously, because this is a huge paradigm shift for a lot of people. But if you look at the research for humans and leaky gut and diet and mental health issues, it points to eating fresh foods. Right? The stuff that I've read anyway, you can look for leaky gut syndrome in humans, and there's a lot of research. And humans, dogs, and rodents have the most similar microbiomes. In fact, a lot of rodents, mice typically do research for humans and dog microbiome stuff. And this is the thing that I think it really hits home for a lot of people when I say this. Dogs benefit from human anti-anxiety medication. They can benefit, right? And we use it when we need to for behavior treatment.
Fluoxetine being one of them.
Yes, fluoxetine, yep. And there's other ones that are FDA approved.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense that, based on the research that there's dog research out there. I have tons and tons of printed articles and saved articles that I've read that look at, microbiomes for humans, microbiomes for dogs, microbiomes. There's a study on sterile rats, or I think they're mice. And there's two groups of mice, and they made one of the groups sterile, like their microbiome sterile. So they gave them a bunch of antibiotics. And then they had another group of mice with a healthy microbiome, or no, I'm sorry, fearful microbiome, or they were fearful mice. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm excited to tell you this. These mice that were fearful, they took the microbiome from the fearful mice and put it in the digestive tracts of the non-fearful mice, and the non-fearful mice became fearful.
My goodness.
So anyway, I went off on a huge tangent, but there's research human research that definitely is relevant to dogs, and there's dog research that piggybacks on human research. And we are really starting to see how much the microbiome, the diversity of those gut bugs, and the health of the digestive tract, we're really starting to see how it affects, in both humans and dogs, mental illness, anxiety, inflammation, all that. So I'm really hopeful. I'm very hopeful. Every week I look on the interwebs for more research, and someday there's going to be one that really is like when people really start to buy in.
It explodes, and then people really go, yeah, got it.
Yep.
I mean, it's taking us a while, isn't it? Even ourselves, we know it, but to actually make that change, to eat better, it's hard. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. When we get back, I'd like to talk about Birdie. Are you and your dog struggling with reactivity? You're not alone. The good news is that we've created a completely new approach to managing your dog's reactivity, and it's available for you and your dog right now. Go to positively.com, click Take a Course, and choose Help Stop Reactivity to enroll in this game-changing online course for you and your dog today. That's positively.com. I'm back with Kari, and we're talking all things gut related. Before we talk about Birdie, because she is your chocolate lab, isn't
Yes,
she? Behavior. How, let's say we've got a dog that is showing some aggressive behavior. There's going to be quite a lot of contributing factors there. We have to find out why.
100%.
And you might look at the environment, you might look at the interaction of the people around that dog, and you can get a lot of information about why that dog is aggressing. And you can do a lot to help that dog, okay? But what would you say about diet? What advice would you say to them? And how is diet potentially contributing to that aggressive behavior?
Well, when you look at what you feed your dog, your dog has to digest it. And so when looking at all the contributing factors, stress, environment, if your dog's a rescue, neglected, whatever, and you're focusing on that, or maybe you're not focusing on all that, but if you're not changing up what goes into your dog, you're probably not going to get the most benefit from your behavior plan, from your training. And that's just my experience. It's anecdotal. I haven't done any research or anything, but I can tell you based on what my clients say that when they feed their dog, or I should say, when they feed their dog more whole foods and look into the gut, more into the gut microbiome, they get more behavior change. It's as easy as just starting with fresh food, like I said before, like that veggie puree, fresh omega-3s. One thing that I didn't mention before that you may know, but most people don't. So we work with a lot of rescue dogs, right? We work with dogs from questionable environments. And this blew my mind when I learned it. Human babies and other mammal babies, including dogs, inherit the mother's microbiome. So if the mother dog, the dog out on the ranch who has puppies, is stressed and has a poor diet and has inflammation and is exposed to toxins and does not have a diverse microbiome, she's going to pass that onto her puppies. And the puppy from the get-go is already at a deficit. And then this anxiety starts, and then these behavior issues start. So anyways, that's just another thing you can look at. But yeah, the biggest thing I tell people for diet is look into a more minimally processed diet, whatever you want to within your budget and lifestyle, and feed a more minimally processed diet if you can. More meat, more moisture, fresh veggies, fresh fruits. Just do those toppers. We should just do another whole podcast on this because there's a lot of things you can do. But
yeah, I like the idea of giving people some kind of recipes of, like, I like the bone broth and the sardines, and maybe putting some peppers in there. I mean, not peppers, sorry, green beans. And
sweet peppers are fine. Birdie loves sweet peppers, like
sweet
orange
peppers.
sweet peppers.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, and apples without the seeds. And so we need to do another podcast at some time about that. But okay, so you have this celiac disease, and it's serious, right? So you have Birdie, and Birdie is your chocolate Labrador, she is a gluten detection dog.
She is. She detects gluten for me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We understand, like, bomb detection and other, diabetes and all that, but gluten detection.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Oh gosh. Okay. So this is fairly new in kind of the service dog arena. I am lucky enough to have done an internship with Dawn Scheu, who is the pioneer in gluten detection. The very first dog that was trained in gluten detection was her dog Willow, and 2023 I started my internship with her, and I finished last year. And she figured out a way to teach dogs how to detect gluten beyond just like your typical, like you said, bomb detection or low blood sugar or whatever. And it's so fascinating because, you know, there isn't a ton of research on it, but we know and we train. I train Birdie with the help of Dawn, and we know that with gluten detection dogs, we don't know exactly what they're smelling, but because we work on training down to trace amounts of gluten, which is different than other medical alerts and just like a bomb detection, we train the dog to detect trace amounts. We also teach them a yes that has gluten or a no that doesn't have gluten. Because if we just rewarded only for gluten, that's just what they would do. They would
Right.
just, I only get rewarded for that. So we teach an all clear. And then the biggest thing with gluten detection dogs is we train with distractor odors. So as we start, we continue the process. It takes about 2 years, but we have to add in, we have to add in other food, like food we call it contaminated food. So gluten with, single ingredients, then we go to complex ingredients, and we go to packages and mealtime. And then we finally train with blind trials where you and the dog don't know what they're trying to identify. And that's how we know that they can identify gluten. We just don't know exactly what they're identifying. But yeah, she sniffs out trace amounts of gluten in my food. They can do medication. That's a big thing. There's gluten in medication.
Yeah.
She saved me from that before. And, shampoo, all that. If it gets in my mouth, it can be serious. It's an autoimmune disease. I'll be sick for weeks. She's a very special dog.
I had a friend of mine who I remember at drama school. I had a friend of mine who was had celiac disease,
Yeah.
and one time she went out with her parents, I think, and they said, "No, this is gluten free." Well, it was not gluten free. She was very, very, very ill.
Yeah.
And so this is serious stuff. This isn't
It is. Not
just
yeah.
no, right.
Why
So
can't have
and
gluten?
I understand how like a body can react to a food that it sees. And my daughter had very, very severe allergies growing up. And, that was very, very dangerous. So it's actually these gluten or dairy or peanuts or whatever, there's a difference. There's an allergic reaction, but this is for people that are like, yeah, it's just a little bit of gluten. No, it's not. It can be so dangerous. It can be life altering.
Yes, it's an autoimmune disease. So gluten attacks my immune system. And that's where the villi lay down, and it causes leaky gut, and toxins leak out into the bloodstream. And I mean, celiac disease can cause other autoimmune diseases. My chances of cancer increase tremendously if I have gluten. So it's a serious disease. And so
Yeah.
having Birdie is a lifesaver.
And how would that go? She comes with you everywhere, yes? Or when you're
No,
out, when
not
you're
quite everywhere,
eating?
but yeah, she travels with me, and yes,
Okay. So
grocery
what do you
store.
do then? How's the process? You have some food in front of you. She comes and what does she do?
I present it to her, and she smells it, and if it has gluten on it, she'll freeze. She'll just do like a little, even her tail stops wagging, which it never stops wagging, but because she's a lab.
She's a lab.
So she'll freeze. And then if it doesn't have gluten on it, she'll boot my leg. So those are her alerts. Yeah. And
How
she can do down
incredible.
to trace amounts. So
So
like if I put
how difficult is it? She's a lab. She's a chocolate lab. She's smelling your food without eating it.
Well, I mean, it's clearly we had to work on impulse control. And I'm now a gluten detection dog trainer, and that is something that we have to work on. But from the get-go, they're not allowed to well, I shouldn't say not allowed to, because when they're puppies, they like to, lick the containers and stuff. But we really teach a ton of impulse control, and you know, it just becomes part of the deal. They know just not to eat it. Now, certainly, and she doesn't really try to eat it, but she'll try and get in a lick once in a while. But that's okay. She's a dog. She's a sentient being. But I mean, I get that question a lot, but she has really good impulse control. So she just smells it, and if I present a plate to her, she'll come up to it and smell it, and she'll tell me if it has gluten or not.
Wow. So if obviously then she sort of bops you, then you know that you're okay
Yes,
and that you can eat the food. But
yes,
then if she stares at it, she's basically saying, yeah, don't touch it. This is not for
correct.
you to eat.
Yep,
Wow.
yep, pretty remarkable. Yeah,
Pretty
it's amazing. It's
remarkable.
a
There are a lot
life-changing
of
thing.
people listening to hear this now going, I need to know how to do this. I
Yeah.
need to have more information. Where do they go if they want more information?
Well, I have two separate websites. My gluten detection website that my friend and business partner Kendra, her and I run celiacservicedogs.com. And for my nutrition and anxiety and fear business, it's called wagandtrain.com. So you can go to either website depending on what you're interested in.
And do you just take people in your areas? You're in Minneapolis, or do you do virtual consultations? I mean, how, if somebody's, doesn't even live in this country that's listening to this
Mhm.
podcast, right? What would you be able to advise them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually only do virtual consults. I had to stop doing in-home training because I kept getting sick from gluten in people's homes.
Wow.
So I just had to make the decision that I can't do it anymore. So I just and I was actually doing virtual consultations pre-lockdown, pre-COVID, because I was moving from Denver to Minneapolis within, kind of 2 years-ish. I was going back and forth. And so I've been doing the virtual consults forever. And it's especially well, I would say for both, for gluten detection and anxiety, fear. I always tell people I don't need to see your dog have separation anxiety. I don't need to see your dog bite somebody. In fact, I don't want to. Like, that is
Right.
not anything that we want to see for many reasons. But because you and I work on the anxiety piece and the fear piece and the counter conditioning piece and everything else, we can do virtual consults that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful to see videos, but otherwise, and for me, a lot of it is like the very first appointment that you have, my behavior assessment, first thing we talk about is gut health and diet. And
Yeah.
then we talk about the behavior. So, anyways, virtual consults are great.
They are great. We always encourage
Mhm.
people to do them as well. Our
Yeah.
trainers that are graduates from VSA, a lot of our VSPDTs, obviously now including you, do virtual consultations, and they're really useful because it means that you can
Mhm.
talk with anybody anywhere in the world and give them
Yeah.
the best, most up-to-date advice. Kari, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. This has been absolutely fascinating. I know there's going to be loads of people that are going to write in saying, recipes, give me, I need to know more about the bone broth. This has just been truly fascinating, and I know that we've just skimmed the surface
Yes.
and
I
there's
feel
so
like I
much
missed a
more to
ton. We'll have to
learn.
do this again.
Yeah, no, we will, and maybe we'll go a little bit
Okay.
more in depth to it, but
Yeah.
just as a start, absolutely fascinating. You are what you eat, and so is your dog.
Yes. I always say food affects mood.
Oh, it sure does.
It sure
It sure
does.
is that why then when I feel a little down, I need to go and get some chocolate? Maybe that's the other way. It's
Well,
like I
yeah.
rely on chocolate, and then still it might make
Convenient.
me feel like good when I'm consuming it, and then after that I go, oh, okay, why did I do that? Darn.
Yep. Yeah. It's worth it.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it, Kari.
Thank you, my friend.
Well, guys, that's it for another podcast. Isn't that fascinating? Oh my goodness. And I know you're all going, yeah, I've got to go down that chip or crisp aisle and like look at all of the ingredients that you're consuming. I've really become so much more knowledgeable about the human food side of things and what I eat and what I don't eat. A lot of those things have the seed oils. Look, if you just avoid the seed oils and you have things like avocado oil or olive oil, things like that, that's a start. Even there's so much seed oil in everything. I'm talking about canola oil and palm oil and all of that. If you avoid that even and just have the olives and that's a start. That can really help you. So, but I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just saying what I'm doing for myself. So I hope that you enjoyed this, everybody, and you all take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on another podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to Victoria Stilwell's Positively podcast. For Victoria's online dog training courses, more information, and helpful dog training tips, visit Victoria's official website at positively.com. Get connected on Facebook, Instagram, and other social media as Victoria Stilwell, and follow her on Twitter at Victoria S. Learn to become a professional dog trainer with the Victoria Stilwell Academy at vsdogtrainingacademy.com. And be sure to tune in next time as Victoria helps you and your dog live your best life together. Positively.